I am personally sitting up on a bolster just because I've been liking having a little bit more height lately. But when I sit up higher, sometimes I feel like my knees pull everything down. So I'm also taking a blanket and rolling it a little bit and putting it underneath my knees. So now I get the benefit of the higher support, which lets my groin automatically release. And then I have support underneath the outer knees so they're not pulling down too much. I know some of you, and at least I know Val and I think Vicki have been doing the Abhidata classes that were all of last week. She actually is really pretty inspiring. She offered her time to do a 2-hour class every morning for 7 mornings in a row. And the money that was paid, that it cost to participate was not all that much in terms of how normally things like that actually cost. And it was actually all of the proceeds went to INAS to support the work of the INAS is the National Iyengar Yoga Association. And then those proceeds will actually be distributed with the different regions of Iyengar Yoga. And so it was really pretty cool that she did that. And it was also really fascinating because she's just there in her room in Pune, and not the institute room, but just a room in their house. And it was the first day of that intensive was her first time actually teaching on Zoom. And I thought back to, I don't know how many weeks ago it was now, but the very first Zoom class I taught via yoga was actually to y'all. I guess that was maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks ago, maybe by now. And I just remembered how terrifying it was, and just that she was there, didn't seem terrified at all, but she was there and said, this is what we have, you know. And so it just really did make me feel very grateful for this medium that we have to still learn and study and practice yoga together. And so I only got to do about maybe like 4 of them live, but they were recorded, and so I was able to do the whole thing. And there's also that Eastern Yoga blog that the woman who does that took some really nice notes of it. And so I'd encourage you to take a look at them. But one of the reasons I was motivated to sit up a little bit higher is that, particularly the last day, but actually throughout the whole thing, Abhidata really talked about the value of props. And we might think of props as something that, I don't know, we need because of like a weakness or some way that we're not actually doing asana correctly. But over and over again, she just really emphasized the value of taking support. And in a lot of ways, the more advanced you are in your practice, the more you can actually appreciate what the support is actually giving you. And so even as I'm just like sitting here, I am just more comfortable sitting without doing anything at all, other than just making the decision of, you know what, I'm actually gonna take the bolster. I'm actually gonna put a blanket underneath my knees. And it's enabled me to already just have a little bit more lift and freedom and a little bit more spaciousness in my own being as I'm sitting here talking and teaching with you. So I encourage you to try that, and don't be afraid to go get something from the couch and put something up underneath you if you don't have a special bolster or anything. All right, so I'm up a little bit higher. It does mean that I can't really reach down quite as readily to my feet and turn the soles of my feet up toward the ceiling, but I can still turn the soles of the feet without my hands. So I can kind of wiggle my feet so I'm more on the top of my feet. It's still easy for me to move my calf flesh up toward the ceiling, and then I can still take my hands, squeeze the thigh flesh, and work my way down the leg. And in fact, it felt so good that I'm deciding on this first leg to do that movement down the leg twice. And I got something a little bit more that time, and then I'll do my second leg. And when I really get that external rotation of the leg, let's see, Vicki, if this hurts your foot, you could just sit in Dandasana and not cross your legs. Or maybe you might need a little bit more padding underneath your foot. So I'll leave that to you. But I really have liked this turning of the thigh that I learned at the David Maloney workshop, which I believe was the last actual yoga workshop I went to in person. But why I like it is just, it really gives me this feeling of the sitting bones drawing in toward each other a little bit more. And so the sitting bones actually support or work together with the firmness of the outer hips to get a lift in the chest. And really, for very little work, I mean, I could say lift the chest, and I can lift my chest up, but then it's a kind of aggressive action, right? So instead, I work with these actions of the legs so that organically there's a lift that comes into the chest. And then once I feel that lift that's come into the chest, then I lengthen up from the pelvis, through the waist, through each individual rib, all the way up into the armpits, and I make myself tall. Keep that height, roll your shoulder bones back, and bring your shoulder blades closer together on your back, away from the neck, and into the center of the body and up a little bit so that your chest gets more lift and also broadness out to that side edges of the collarbones. Then keeping your chest well lifted and broad, close your eyes and fold your palms together at your heart. You can use the thumbs and the forearms also as a prop to help lift the chest even more. You can gently press those forearms into the front ribs, right underneath the rib cage, and the thumbs up into the sternum and lift up. One of the sayings that Mr. Iyengar has all kinds of, let's say, nifty sayings that attribute to him, and one of them is the body is the first prop. So yeah, I've got a fancy bolster and a blanket underneath my knees, but I also have my arms and my legs. And the work of yoga in many ways is to figure out how the body can be used as a support for the involution of consciousness. Not only the body, but also the breath. So as you inhale, make yourself taller from the tailbone all the way up through the head. Keep that height, and as you exhale, draw the prana, or the energy of the breath, outward towards your side ribs and armpits. Inhale, make yourself tall. Keep that height. Exhale, make yourself broad. Inhale, extend yourself. Exhale, expand yourself. Use the breath to create additional inner spaciousness in the body. Then, having created that sense of inner spaciousness, turn your awareness to the exhalation. Follow the exhalation with your mind, like it's a pathway, or a thread, or a prop for you to turn your awareness from the outer world more deeply in, to that inner world, the inner landscape of you, the domain of yoga. And now from that still place within, let's chant 3 Oms together. Follow that sound with your mind. Follow the reverberation of the sound with your mind. And from that space, inhale once more. Keep your chest well lifted and broad as you bring your chin down to your chest and your hands down to your thighs with your palms up. And then raise your head and open your eyes. Go ahead and keep your legs in this first cross position, and then stretch your arms out in front of you. Extend through the ring fingers so you bring your tricep muscles closer to the bone. Interlace your fingers and turn your palms toward me. Suck your elbows in and extend through the wrist bones. Try not to push the fingers themselves forward, because that just pops the fingers, which does feel good. But what you really are trying to do, but then you're just kind of exploiting the flexibility of the fingers rather than sucking the elbows in and extending through the wrist bones so that the whole arm straightens organically. Then reach your arms up into Parvatasana in Sukhasana, mountain pose in Sukhasana. Suck your elbows in, extend up through the wrists. Make yourself tall. Keep pressing the feet down and moving moving the outer femurs in, and that's the base, which supports the growth of the sides of the torso, and also the reach upward with the arms. Should feel good. And keep that length that you got in the sides of the torso by raising your arms up above your head, and then bring your hands down, and then switch the grip of your fingers, and turn your palms toward me. And check back in at your base and press your feet down and energetically lift the ankles up till you feel that firmness come into the hips and the lift come into the chest. Also lift through your side ribs as you suck your elbows in and extend through the wrist bones. Then reach your arms all the way up above your head into Parvatasana and Sukhasana. Make yourself taller and taller and taller by stretching your wrist bones up toward the ceiling, like you're using your arms really like they are a prop, like someone was pulling you up and reaching up toward the ceiling so you get longer in the side ribs, and you should also feel your abdomen drop in toward the spine as well. And then keep that firmness in the outer hips, keep the length in the sides of the torso as you bring your hands all the way down. And then go ahead and switch the cross of your legs, stretch your legs out into Dandasana, and then cross your legs the opposite way. And if you're up in a lot of height like I am, then you might need to support underneath your knees. You might, even if you don't want to do it right now, I really would encourage you to try it for yourself sometime. Okay? See what it feels like sitting on the floor. See what it feels like sitting on a couple of blankets. And then say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and sit up on the bolster. And when I sit up on the bolster, what I'm really feeling is, without making a single adjustment, okay, at all, I can feel that I have more depth and also more width in my groin. And when the groins are released, the energy, why that's so important in terms of yoga, it's one of the places where we get really tight in the body. Particularly in times like this when we're probably sitting a lot, looking at the computer more. If you can get your groin to release and soften, and again, there are 3 basic ways that I think about that happening, the rest of the body is just going to feel more relaxed. So I haven't made a single adjustment other than the fact that I'm sitting up higher. And it has already given me that feeling of freedom and that lift in the chest. And so please don't hold yourself back from that. Okay? Try it and see what you feel. Again, one detriment of sitting up high is I can't easily reach down to turn my feet with my hands. So I have to turn the feet on their own a little bit more. But I can still move my calf flesh up toward the ceiling, and I can do those postural adjustments with my thighs. Same thing, don't be afraid to really squeeze, okay, and really turn. And it's okay to do it several times, okay, until you really feel, oh, I've got more support. And now my sitting bones have drawn in and they're in the game, so I can feel even more lift coming into the chest. Another interesting thing Abhijata talked about in this intensive is that ability to feel the cause and effect of yoga practice. She didn't actually talk about it in these terms, but that's associated with our sense of discrimination in a good way. Okay? That you can actually make judgments, that you can perceive cause and effect. And it's really that ability, she said, that is responsible for the quote-unquote health benefit of yoga. Okay? It's not so much, sitting in Sukhasana on a bolster releases the groin, but the fact that I can perceive that. Okay? That's really where the power of yoga is, okay? And how it changes your consciousness to observe what's actually going on in your body. Okay? And I had never actually heard that before. I mean, I had heard the importance of understanding cause and effect, but the notion that that's really what makes us, let's say, stronger and healthier in our yoga practice. Okay, so just try and train yourself to begin to notice those things, or to notice those things on a deeper level if you're already noticing them. Okay, so now let's do bound thumb pose. And press your feet down into the floor and energetically lift your ankles up so you feel that firmness come into the hips and the lift come into the chest. Then hook one thumb over the other thumb, pull the thumbs against each other and stretch your fingers out. Keep pulling the thumbs against each other as you reach your hands all the way up behind you, above your head. Pull your thumbs against each other and stretch your fingers up high toward the ceiling. And observe how much easier it is to get the arms straight when you don't have the wrist challenge of the Parvatasana. But also observe where you feel this differently in the back of the shoulder blades. Okay. So I feel it definitely more distinctly in the shoulder blades. Like this, helping the shoulder blades move in so that the chest opens a little bit more fully. And keep that nice length in the sides of the torso and the lift in the chest as you bring your hands down. And then switch the grip of your thumbs. Pull your thumbs against each other. Keep pulling your thumbs against each other as you reach your hands all the way up above your head. Pull the thumbs against each other, draw the elbows in, and stretch your fingertips all the way up toward the ceiling. Make yourself tall. Lift up well. And keep that additional height and length that you got on the sides of the torso as you bring your hands all the way down, and then sit back in Sukhasana. And then stretch your legs out into Dandasana. Now, take your blanket or a towel if you don't have a blanket. And this really, the reason I thought about a towel, sorry, you couldn't see me, is like when I have my blanket unfolded like this, it really looks pretty much like a towel, right? It would be even better to get like a towel that's a kind of older towel, because then it's a little bit firmer rather than a big fluffy towel. But get and use what you have. And then make this roll, a roll with your blanket. Again, it doesn't have to be a fancy yoga blanket. And now you're going to put the roll. It can be anything that you could roll up. It could even be like a sheet. It could be a second sticky mat, anything. Put it in front of whatever you're sitting on. So it needs to be a little bit lower than whatever the support you're sitting on. Then take your right hand on the inside of your right knee. Keep your knee out wide, and you're going to put your ankle up on the support. And Vicky, if you just have to do one foot, that's okay. Or you could also pad the floor. Right? And then do the same thing. Take your hand and turn the calf flesh, turn the thigh. So you're in half Baddha Konasana going toward, what is it? Mula Bandhasana. And then do the same thing with your other leg, so that you bring the soles of the feet and the heels together. It's a little squishy on the toes. I won't deny that. Okay. But it's okay, because when I can kind of put up with the squishiness of the toes, because I can feel already just in this different seated position, more width coming in to the groin. Okay. The Sukhasana gets more what I would say depth in the groin, where the groin is kind of moving back. Baddha Konasana is really good for getting width. And then you also eventually will also sit in Virasana. Virasana is really good for getting both depth and also length. And we'll do some Supta Padangusthasana today with the sacrum up on a brick, where you really feel that length. Okay, so the groin, again, in Iyengar yoga, generally speaking, the groin, I'll put it this way. The groin, what they mean by the groin is not like the genitalia as such, but what they mean are this whole complex of muscles that connect the legs, the organs of action, with the torso. So they'll talk about front groins, back groins, middle groins, all these different kinds of things. But for me, there are three basic ways that we want to open the groins. We want to get depth in the groin. So like in this case, depth in the groin would mean that the groin is moving back behind you. I don't feel depth as much in this pose as I do in some other poses. This one I feel width in the groin, but it is a little harder for me to lift up, even though I'm on height, to lift up and feel the length in the groin. Okay, but that's what we're after, depth, width, and length. Okay, so here we are in Baddha Konasana. Push the big toes together, balls of your feet together, and the heels together, and see how you feel that firmness come into the hips. I'm going to put my hands on the support and use my hands as a prop in order to lift and get more length coming into the sides of the torso. Roll your shoulder bones back, bring your shoulder blades closer together on your back, away from the neck and into the center of the body and up a little bit, so you feel the effect of that work on the arms and that lift of the chest. Then, if you have a block handy, if you don't have a block handy, just bring your feet a little bit further apart. And if you do have a block handy, or a Kleenex box. No, that would probably be too soft. That probably wouldn't work. But you could use like a water bottle, and that would be hard enough. That's another thing I'll be told a lot of stories about her grandfather doing these things. And one of the things, I've heard this story, but it really had different resonance for me, is she was talking about in the early days when Mr. Iyengar was, had just married his wife, and was not yet famous, and they were in their house. All he would really do, he had a few students, but he mostly just spent his days practicing yoga. And so he looked around his house to find things that would enhance his practice. And so he just had that mindset to think about, oh, what if I want more width in the groin? So can I find something in the house that actually moves my feet further apart? And she actually said, we have the opportunity to experience that mindset ourselves, rather than just taking for granted that the props are going to be at the studio, or maybe you haven't gotten around to buying your own set of props yet. Maybe it's just not financially possible. But even if you have that, it's actually a fascinating kind of inquiry to look around and see, gee, I've got a bench there. What could I do with this bar stool that I've got that would actually make my practice better? So even if you're fortunate enough to have, and then make the brick be one wider, even if you are fortunate enough to have a whole fancy yoga studio that it looks like some of you do, like I do myself, take advantage of this time that you're around your house to see what's in your house that actually can support your practice. How is the house a prop for you? In a good way. All right, and then if you feel like you've got a little bit more in your ability to get more width in the groin, can you put the brick in what I call the Mondo brick position? Now, I'm kind of sinking down, so I really have, because it's a lot harder, because I'm getting width, but I'm sacrificing length. Okay, so I have to really push down with my hands in order to reestablish some sense of length or ascendancy in the torso. All right, then, get rid of the brick, get rid of the blanket roll. Then I'm going to slide off my setup all the way down to the floor. And so now I'm in pretty nice Baddha Konasana. If I were to do all that again, I might even find that my knees would go all the way to the floor. But now, instead of just using the props, I'm going to use the body as a prop. Okay. So I'm going to open the soles of the feet with my hands. Okay, so I'm using my hands, the body as a first prop, to turn the soles of the feet up toward the ceiling. Okay. Then I'm going to push the little toe side of my foot against each other. Okay, so the little toes, if you think about it, they're a prop for each other. And the more I push that whole little toe side of the foot against each other, I feel that firmness coming into the outer hips, which itself is a prop or a support to get even more length in the groin. And so now you might be able to see it, you might not, but now my knees are getting really pretty close to the floor. And they're not quite there, but they're getting pretty close down toward the floor. Then I'm going to move my heels apart from each other. Okay, so my feet, first, pretend this is like the little toe side of my foot. So the little pinkies, and I was keeping it together at first, and that helped. Now I'm letting the heels come away, and I'm just pressing the little toes themselves against each other. And then I feel even more width coming into the groin. Then I'm going to keep that additional width and see if I can bring my heels back together. And that actually really worked for me. Now I can really feel the outer hips and the sitting bones all moving more in toward each other, and my knees are practically down at the floor. Pretty remarkable for 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning. All right, then take your hands on the outside of your knees, pull your knees together, stretch your legs out into Dandasana. If you need to sit back up on some height for Dandasana, please feel free to do so. In fact, I'm going to take my own advice. I know I don't need the height of the bolster for Dandasana, But I'm gonna unroll my blanket, fold it in half again. So I just have a little bit of height, because I might need more than that, we'll see. Because when I was sitting on the floor, I did really like the feeling of how rooted my thighs were down to the floor, but I could feel I wasn't getting as much lift vertically as I might want. And so now I'm on one blanket, but you know what? I might want 2 blankets. So I'm gonna take the effort to get my second blanket or fold the other blanket in half. All right, now it's just like baby bear, just right. So now I've got it's not so much height that I lose a lot of connection with the legs, but I can feel now I have the beginnings of both depth in the groin and a little bit more ability to lengthen up through the sides of the torso. Okay, so be in Dandasana. Join your big toes together and spread your other toes wide apart. I was reading something, I don't know where, but it said my toes actually have been kind of tight during this global pandemic, despite the fact that I'm doing lots of yoga. Or maybe it's just that I noticed their tightness, but apparently there is one phenomenon of coronavirus that somehow the virus gets in and attacks your toes. And so there's like coronavirus toes. So I'm trying not to like overly worry about that. But the larger point is like, oh, I'm trying to spread my toes. And you know, my left toe they look great and I can do it really easily. But my right toes, particularly like that 4th and 5th toe, they just don't want to move as much. So I have to say, come on, 4th and 5th toe, can you actually move away from the other toes? And in that observation and that ability to self-correct, that's really what we're trying to build up in yoga. It's not so much what the toe is doing. Again, it's your capacity to notice and to try to do something to facilitate that connection between the mind and the toe. That's really the yoga, more than whether your toe is nicely spread or not. But spread your toes to the extent that you can. Keep spreading your toes against each other as you push the big toe side of your foot together, and observe how that brings all the muscles of your legs into alignment. So you didn't even have to say, hey, quadriceps lift, hey, inner thighs lift, hey, groin release. All that actually happens just by you really working your toes intelligently. Right, then lengthen up through your side ribs, roll the shoulder bones back, bring your fingertips back behind you, and then push your fingertips down to get even more length in the sides of the torso. So Dandasana, speaking of this notion of propping yourself, Dandasana means a staff, right? And so it's like a walking stick or a staff or a rod that you would use to support your body when you need it. So normally I think of that as referring to the spine. Right? The spine is really the staff of the body. Okay? But if you think about what supports the ability of the spine to lift up, then you've got your legs working as a staff. And you interlace your fingers and have them behind you and lift up. You've got your arms as a support. And so the spine, which supports the whole body, can also take the support of the arms and the legs. And so be in Dandasana. Then reach your arms up into Urdhva Hastasana in Dandasana. And reach up with your arms, and you'll feel your spine get even longer. And hopefully you'll feel your abdomen draw in and up a little bit as you reach up toward the ceiling. Then keep your right hand reaching up toward the ceiling as you bring your left hand back behind you. Push down with your left hand and up with your right hand. And then bring your hand to the outside of your right, I'm going to my right, so it would be your left if you want to do it mirroring me. But press your fingertips down and lengthen up through the whole sides of the torso. And then as you exhale, keeping your elbows wide, turn and go into Parsvadandasana. Keep your elbows wide and actually let your shoulder blades move a little bit away from each other. You don't have to keep them like always so firmly onto the chest, but get some broadness in the back of the body. As you inhale, lengthen up, and as you exhale, turn and rotate. Inhale, lengthen up, exhale, turn and rotate. Then one more time, inhale, lengthen up, exhale, turn and rotate yourself around and feel where the twist occurs in your back body. For me, in this hand position today, I'm feeling the twist primarily in my lower left shoulder blade. And then as you come back to the center, don't sink, but instead let the twist help you get actually a little bit taller. And reach your arms up again into Urdhva Hastasana. Check back in and make sure your legs are working well to support the lift of the spine, and that your arms also lift up to support the work of the spine. Keep your left arm reaching up toward the ceiling and bring your right hand back behind you. Push down with your fingertips and up with your hands so you get longer and longer and longer still through the spine. As much as you can, keep that length as you bring your hand down to the outside of the knee. Roll your shoulders back. Lengthen up through the side ribs. Again, keep your elbows wide and exhale, turn and rotate. And observe where the twist happens in the back of the body. And I'm feeling at my lower shoulder blades primarily. Interestingly, I'm still feeling the twist more on the left side than the right side, even though I'm turning in the opposite direction. And then lift up again, inhale, make yourself tall. And then exhale, turn and rotate. One more work with the breath. Inhale, lift up and make yourself tall from the tailbone all the way up through the head. And then as you exhale, turn and rotate yourself again. And then make yourself taller as you come back to the center. Be in Dandasana and observe the effect of the twist. All right, then let's go ahead and stand up so we can observe the effect of that seated work on the Tadasana. So be in your Tadasana. I'm going to shift my camera a little bit because I realize you can't see my head. All right, so stand in Tadasana. We spend significantly more time doing seated work than we have been. You know, we're a little bit, well into class now, but as you stand in your Tadasana, observe how this Tadasana feels as opposed to, in using your memory, a Tadasana feels when we stand up more right away. So I can feel now, even though we were working, I would say, really more with getting width in the groin. I feel that, but what I actually feel once I stand up is a more length in the groin. And so that translates even up into more lift in the chest. It's like your outer femur bones in and lift up well through the chest. Roll your shoulder bones back. Bring your shoulder blades closer together, away from the neck and into the center of the body, up a little bit so that you feel your chest get well lifted and broad. Just feel the energy moving through the body. It's not like I was having difficulty breathing sitting down. I wasn't. Okay. But now that I'm standing up, I can feel how much more readily the prana, or the energy of the breath, moves through the chest when I'm standing. Press your big toes against each other like you were doing in Dandasana, and spread your other toes wide apart, and observe how that brings the outer femur bones in. Then add your arms. Stretch through the ring fingers as you reach your arms up into Urdhva Hastasana. Keep turning the tricep from the outside in as you reach your ring fingers way up toward the ceiling. Feel how much length that you can get in the spine. Then hold on to your right wrist with your left hand. Get even more lift. And so you're using one hand as a prop for the other. So you can pull up even more. Let your trapezius muscles release down though. And then tip over just a little bit. Press down into your heels and pull with your heel. Make yourself really, really long through that whole side of your body. And when you come back to the center, it's just like we came back to Dandasana. Don't sink. In fact, keep that length and increase the length as you come back to the center. Then come back to Urdhva Hastasana with your hands. Turn your palms down and press into the air element with your hands as you come back down to Tadasana. See, can you feel a difference between one side of the body and the other? So on the side that I stretch to, or away from, actually, I guess I'll say, I feel longer. Okay? The shoulder bone goes a little bit back more readily. There's more opening in the chest. And the outer shoulder blade is tucked in a little bit more. Like, I guess I'll do the other side. All right, so reach your arms up into Urdhva Hastasana. Turn your triceps from the outside in as you reach up through your ring fingers so your arms get as straight as they can possibly be. Then take your left wrist with your right hand and pull up. You know, when I reach here without the pulling up, I think I really can't do anymore. But then when I take the prop or use one hand to support the other hand, wow, I've got a lot more space than I realized. And then I'm going to tip over to the other side. It's not just tipping over. What I'm actually doing is pulling even more. I ground into my heels, and then I feel that stretch coming from the outer hip, through the sideways, through the ribs, through the armpits as I reach way, way, way over. Then keep that additional length and in fact increase upon it as you pull back toward the center and make yourself taller still. And then bring your hands back to Urdhva Hastasana and then press your hands back down into the air element so you end up in really nice Tadasana. And just observe the flow of energy in the body. Stretch your arms out or interlace your fingers, turn your palms, stretch through the elbows and through the wrist bones for Urdhva Baddha. Reach your arms up. Parvatasana means a mountain. And if you look up like in Latin yoga, I think of Parvatasana as being like a bigger mountain than Tadasana, which also means a mountain. But it also later gets called Urdhva Baddha, which means upward down finger pose, but it's basically the same shape of the pose. So lift up, make yourself tall, press down to the heels as you lift up and make yourself taller still, and then tip over a little bit. Press down into your heels and then really feel, I can actually feel when I'm tipping over this way, getting more length and extension from the pelvis. So just by changing that arm position, you get a different sensation of lengthening or extension in the side of the body. Now again, as you come back to the center, don't lose the length you got, and in fact, try and increase the length as you try and come back to Tadasana, to Urdhva Baddha. Then let's go to the other side. Reach up with your arm or your wrist bones and tip over. And it's not just tipping over, that you're actually trying to press the heels down and stretch to that opposite wrist bone as you do that. Then come all the way back to the center. Keep the length and bring your hands down. Notice which finger you have on top and come back to Tadasana. And feel the effect wherever you notice it. Of just a very, very simple basic pose has profound effect if you take the time to notice it. If you build, it's not only if you take the time, you actually have to build up the skill to notice, to observe. What I'm finding is I bring us back into Tadasana, which is a practice I'm really doing a lot more of as I'm teaching you via Zoom. The first place I generally feel a difference is actually in my brain. I usually feel like some drawing inward, either of the side brain or the front brain to the back brain. And generally speaking, whatever I do, I can also feel more rooting in the hips and more lift upward in the front body. It has a slightly different sensation depending on what we're doing, but those are just clues or places that you might look. Okay. All right, then stretch your arms out again. Now I have to do the opposite interlace. Interlace your fingers the opposite way and turn your palms toward me. And try not to just push through the fingers. I mean, it does feel good and that cracking of the fingers can be very satisfying. But what we're really trying to do is get the arm itself straighter. So from the elbow joint, extend through the wrist bones. If it's too much for you, you can do bound thumb or you can do Urdhva Hastasana. I know some of you have some wrist problems, issues, whatever. Wrist challenges, wrist opportunities for additional growth and inward turning and involution of consciousness. Right? All right, press down into your heels and lengthen from the elbows through the wrist bones so you get taller. And then tip over to the first side. You know, what I feel is this nice, this, for me, I really feel this nice little more front body extension from doing this in Urdhva Badanguliasana. And then keep whatever length you got and increase it as you come back to the center. Reach your up through the wrist bones again, and then stretch over to the side, other side. On this side, when I tip over, I don't feel it quite as much on the front body. I feel it a little bit more on the side body. And so I'll have to ask myself, why is that? And what's going on? Right. And then it's not like one or the other is bad or good or worse or better. Okay? It's just the sides experience the yoga differently. And so I have to ask myself why that's the case. And then come back to Tadasana. All right, now let's do Badanguliasana behind the back. So I'll just turn around so you can see a little bit more. Interlace my fingers and keep my elbows bent first. Lengthen up through the side ribs and roll your shoulder bones back. And then straighten your elbows. My hands right now are, like you can see it, maybe like about a 45-degree angle away from the body, which is fine. And then I move my outer shoulder blades in, move my shoulder blades down and up and into the body. But now I'm going to move my hands back where they're closer in line with my buttocks. And I'm going to lengthen the fingers down toward the floor. And then I can actually feel that nicely coaxing my trapezius muscles away from the neck, which feels really nice. So again, this 45-degree angle is great. I feel that that brings my shoulder blades in, shoulder bones back, but then if I can keep that and then bring my hands further down in line more with my buttocks and reach down, then I can really feel those trapezius muscles releasing away from the neck. Feels very pleasant. And then just release and stand in Tadasana. And feel how the energy moves a little bit more outward toward the upper collarbones. I've been having some issues with my neck the last couple of weeks. I'm really finding these shoulder lengthening things to be very helpful. All right, and then stretch your arms out again. Now we're going to do the, oops, we have to go behind the back. So interlace your fingers with the opposite hand cross. Keep your elbows bent first because that helps you lift up into the armpits. Move the front of the armpit to the back of the armpit. All right, and then straighten your arms out. First staying at that 45-degree angle, and you can really pull your fingers back, and I just automatically feel the shoulder blades come in toward each other. I can move them away from the neck and in and up a little bit, but then when I move my hands where they go back down in line with my buttocks and reach the fingers down, then I really feel that trapezius muscle releasing away from the neck. And you may not exactly feel things in the way that I do, but you'll feel something. All right, and then release, come back to Tadasana, and then reach your arms all the way up into Urdhva Hastasana again. Make yourself tall. Turn your palms down, and then bring your hands all the way back. And don't you feel like your shoulder blades have come in a little bit more, away from the neck, and up and in, so you really feel increased opening in the chest. That's another place I usually feel the work of the Tadasana. Okay, so last overhead shoulder exercise we're going to do is down thumb, going from one side to the other side. So hook your thumbs against each other, pull your thumbs against each other as you straighten your fingers out, and observe how much easier it is to get the arms straight when you're not dealing with the flexion in the wrist. And then stretch your arms all the way up into Urdhva down thumb pose. Keep pressing your thumbs against each other and lengthening up, and then tip over to the side. And observe the different sensation of length and opening that comes with this hand position. You can control it, but when you're, I keep on saying tipping, but it's really not just tipping. What you're trying to do is go to the side to give yourself more space in this side of the body so you get length all the way from the heels, through the outer hip, through the rib cage, through the armpit, through the arm. Yeah. And then keep that length as you come back to the center. Hook your thumbs against it, pull your thumbs against each other again, and then tip over to the other side. Okay. Keep pulling your thumbs against each other as you reach and extend. Press down into the heel and extend through the fingers so you get even more extension through the side of the body. And then come all the way back to the center. Notice which thumb is done first. My right thumb is on top of my left thumb. And then bring your hands all the way back down into Tadasana. I do feel the brain thing that I was telling you, but I also feel how much more my shoulder blades have drawn in. My weight's more in the back body. I feel like the chest is just opening more and more and more like a nice blooming flower. So that feels so good. I think I'll do the other side. All right, so stretch your arms out again. Hook your thumbs against each other. Keep pulling your thumbs against each other as you extend your fingers forward. And reach your hands all the way at fingers up toward the ceiling. Pull your thumbs against each other as you reach them up. And again, I feel like there's no, I'm tall already. And it's like, how would I create more space to get more extension? I'm gonna tip to the side. So I am getting, I'm to a degree, sacrificing the length on one side to get more length and extension on the other side. Then I can keep that additional length that I got on this side, in fact, build upon it as I come back to the center. And then when I tip to the other side, now it's getting the support of a little bit of compression on the other side. Press down into your heels, pull your thumbs against each other and stretch through the fingers and reach all the way up. Turn your palms against each other and then come all the way down and back to Tadasana. Observe the good effect of that arm work. All right, then let's go into downward facing dog now and see the effect of that shoulder work and that arm stretching and the groin work that we did while sitting on our first downward facing dog probably of the day, unless you were doing dog while you're waiting for me. Okay. So I'm just gonna bend down rather than kneeling down, but if you wanna kneel down, you can. Got my hands on the floor, turn my triceps from the outside in. Then I'm going to walk back to Adho Mukha Svanasana. And before I make any huge additional changes, I'm just going to say, what does this dog feel like? And for me, I'm like, okay, my arms feel pretty straight. And I feel a nice distribution of weight between the hands and the feet. It's not like I can't get better in the dog, but it's a pretty good dog just to start out with. Keep pressing your hands down and forward as you move the weight back into your legs. Move the side ribs back to your legs as well. So we have a tendency to kind of, a lot of people, particularly if you're kind of more in the flexible plan of humanity, we tend to kind of push the side ribs down toward the floor. But instead, think about moving your side ribs back toward your thighs. And that'll elongate the sides of the torso. Now come up onto the balls of the feet, press down through those big toes. Notice how that helps your quadriceps maintain their action. Then as you reach back through your heels, I used to say that, but now I'm adding 2 additional things. Reach from your arches of your feet through your heels and push the front of your ankle bone backward. And let those 2 actions of the feet help you hit your heels a little bit more toward the floor. Now I feel even more rooted. Feels very lovely and stabilizing. All right, then walk your feet forward so that you're in Uttanasana. And just let your sides of your torso hang a little bit down toward the floor. Extend from the pelvis, from the pubic bone on the front body down, from the tailbone on the back body down, and let the sides of the torso get even longer. If you want even more length, hook your elbows with your thumbs and pull downward. So again, just like we were using the arms reaching up to get more length in the spine, now this position of the arms is helping you get more length in the spine in the opposite direction. Hook your thumbs the opposite way and keep pulling down. Now I've got lots of nice length in the sides of the torso. I'm going to try and keep that as I come into the concave stage of the pose. My hands are quite easily on the floor, but I learned the last time I did this that even though my hands are quite easily on the floor, if I actually go ahead and come up a little bit and get some height for my hands, I feel this incredible release in the pelvic region. I can much more readily feel width, length, and depth in the groin because I decided to raise my hands up. It's pretty remarkable. So I encourage you to try it. You know, it's just a different mindset. You know, particularly when we're tight, you might have this goal of, oh, I've really got to get my hands down on the floor. And I can get my hands on the floor really easily. So now knowing that, okay, what does the quote unquote prop give me? And what it gives me is spaciousness, width, depth, a sense of quietude from this pelvic area of my body. And place your hands on your pelvic bones, roll your shoulder bones back, and come all the way up. And observe the effect of your Tadasana after the nice downward facing dog and a little bit of Uttanasana work. I now am feeling, oh, that released some sinus pressure. And now we're going to do Ekapada Adho Mukha Svanasana. So you're going to come back again to downward facing dog. Place your hands on the floor, turn your triceps, walk your feet back for downward facing dog. Make sure you've got enough room behind you to extend your legs. Join your feet together, okay, and do downward facing dog with your feet together first. And for me, I can really feel that draws the outer femur bones in more readily. Then I'm going to reach that leg so it's in line with my spine and pull back from the leg, and that gives me some length. Make sure you're still pressing through your hands. But now from your shoulder blades, extend all the way back through your inner heel and you'll get even more length. Move your side ribs back toward your standing leg. You'll get even more length. Keep the length that you got as you bring your leg down. And wow, today, I won't be able to get my heel down, but my foot is actually all the way back toward my heel. So I got that much length in my body. So if I adjusted for the second side, this would actually be a tiny, tiny bit too long. So I'm not going to go all that way. And I'm going to come back to the center. Right, then do your second side. And keeping your arms firm, reach back with the leg, just itself the leg, like someone's pulling on your ankle bone. And you get some extension. Then, keeping your hands pressing down and forward, from your shoulder blades, extend the leg back. And my head's almost down at the floor just from having done that. From your side ribs, extend back through the leg, and you get additional length. Then bring your foot down. And now I'm even longer. Now move your feet back to regular downward facing dog. And move your side ribs back toward your legs. And see how much more the head goes down toward the floor. Mine's actually on the floor. Oh, it feels amazing. All right, and then walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. And again, do that hanging Uttanasana. Okay. Hook your elbows into your thumbs into your elbows and extend downward. Don't hold off on the lengthening of the spine. Hook your thumbs the opposite way and pull down again. If I were to do this a third time, I would actually go ahead and stand up on blocks because I've got that much more length. Keep the length again as you come back to the concave stage. If you want to put your hands back up on some height so you can get that nice feeling of openness in the pelvic region, go ahead and do so. This time I'm feeling that sense of openness extending all the way up into my brain as well. Then place your hands on your pelvic bones, roll your shoulder bones back, come all the way up, and then turn around and be in Tadasana again. And observe the effect. I'm feeling a deeper sense of unity or integration in my body. I can also feel the breath much more kind of moving through my nasal passages. I feel my ears inward as well. All right, so I got downward facing dog, Uttanasana. Let's go for Prasarita Padottanasana now. Okay. So I'm just turning on my opposite mat. Yeah, so but my feet are wide apart. So the first wide, really the first, well, I guess our legs were apart in Uttanasana, downward facing dog. But you're well prepared now from all of the groin work that we've done to feel the additional width that comes into the groin by standing your legs wide apart. I also am feeling that my legs are well prepared, so I actually already feel that compaction in the hips, which is very nice. Place your hands on your pelvic bones and move your buttocks toward your heels. Move your elbows in a little bit so your shoulder blades come in, and then look up a little bit toward the ceiling, and from that pubic area, lengthen all the way up through the head. Keep that link side, but keep the legs strong, keep the sides of the torso long and fold forward, and go ahead and bring your hands down on the floor. You can use the height here if you want to. Maybe I'll go ahead and do it. All right, so I just have the bolster handy. It's actually pretty nice. Oh wow, now I feel even more width in the groin. I feel more depth in the groin. Then I'm going to turn my fingers facing away from each other, and I feel that shoulder bone turns in more, or out more, and my shoulder blades draw in more. I have to make sure I'm drawing my abdomen in and up also so I don't sink down into the pose, but I'm trying to extend from the pubis all the way through the head. Then turn your hands back so your fingers are going the opposite direction of your toes, and feel how you get even more shoulder rotation. Feels great. Then bring your hands back to the forward position. Keeping the length that you got with your hands up. Go ahead and bring your hands down to the floor, or bricks if they don't reach the floor. Then walk your hands back to the second stage of the pose where you have your hands aligned with your feet, but you're still extending forward. This really stretches the wrist, and we need all the help we can get with keeping the wrists flexible all the time we're spending on the computer. And then fold all the way down into the next stage of Prasarita Padottanasana. And you can try and bring your head in a little bit more. You can even kind of tuck your chin toward your chest and come a little bit more in the back of the head and feel how that feels. I'm not liking the sound of my voice when I do that, so I'm going to back off on that a little bit. And then hold on with your hands on your ankles. Lift your shoulders away from your ears and keep your elbows out wide. Feel the additional width across the collarbones. I also feel the contents of my brain drawing in. Feels very nice. Then come back to the Shirshasana 2 hand position. Come back to the concave back stage. Walk your hands forward and do even more extension from the front body. Walk your feet in just a tiny bit. Place your hands on your hips and come all the way up. And then turn around again and begin Tadasana. Another thing that was quite remarkable about this Abhijata set of classes is she really didn't do a lot of hard poses at all. Yeah. In fact, she talked a lot about this is not really the time to be acquisitive for getting our poses better, but rather we need to work and support, use our practice as a support for ourselves and bolster ourselves within. I don't know, maybe we maybe did a little bit of, I think we did Ardha Baddha Padottanasana one day. That's probably like the hardest pose that we did. All right, so now it is time for whatever you do when Shirshasana rolls around. In keeping with the idea of the support or the prop, I've actually been doing Shirshasana a lot more in this sheltering time at the wall. And some of it's because my neck has been bothering me, like I said, and so I want the support of the wall. So I have my blanket, I have my wall support. And if you don't do Shirshasana, repeat Uttanasana or Prasarita Padottanasana or downward facing dog. Okay, one of the 3 poses that we did. Then, I mean, I won't dictate. Like one of the things that Bobby said constantly is like, I leave it to you. I leave it to you. So, but I'm taking the support. And I have my fingers all the way against the wall. I put the crown of the head on the floor, and then I can feel, because my fingers are supported, they support my head differently. And I press the forearms down, lift the shoulders up, and then I'm going to bring one leg and then the other leg up. And observe. Well, you might want to settle in for a second. Sometimes you can go too quickly toward observation. But at the same time, you can also try to fix things before you know what really needs to be fixed. Okay, for instance, I know I have to press my forearms down. I know I have to lift my shoulders up. I know I have to move my buttocks toward my heels. I know I need to turn my thighs in and extend from the inner knees up through the inner heels. So I have to go through that checklist and do all those things. And then I can observe, okay, what's this Shirshasana feeling like today? One of the reasons I really like the wall support like this is I really do like when the fingers are supported, I really do like the way the hand supports the head a little bit more. It's almost like I'm squeezing my head with my hands, but I'm actually not. It's just that there's a more firm connection. And it helps me engage the shoulders a little bit differently. And so, I'm not going to do it now, but one thing I might take from that observation is, okay, can I make my hands feel a little bit more like this when I'm doing independent Shirshasana? Because now that I think about it, what tends to happen over time in independent Shirshasana is that my hands kind of loosen their grip and almost like they fall toward the floor. Okay? But when they have the support of the wall, they're doing the thing that they're supposed to be doing. Okay? Right. I'm going to go ahead and bring my legs into Baddha Konasana just because something in me said, oh, that would feel really good. Because my brain was feeling very expansive and open. And so I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do Baddha Konasana and get some more width in the groin, the other side of the torso. And then bring your legs back up into Tadasana and see if you can feel, because we went for width, did you get a little bit more length in your front body? All right, now keep pressing your forearms down, keep lifting your shoulders up, and then bring one foot down and the other foot down. And go ahead and rest in Adho Mukha Virasana. Even before the whole additional insight into props, I have known for quite some time that I really like to have my forehead resting on a brick after Shirshasana and Adho Mukha Virasana. It keeps the spine more straight. I like the feeling of the foam brick on my forehead also. All right, then go ahead and push yourself all the way back up. We've got the brick here, so let's do a brick Setu Bandha, and then we'll go for Viparita Karani and Shavasana. I think we've got enough time to do all that. Okay, all right. So lie down on your back. Have your brick handy. Move your feet where they're right near your buttocks. Lift your buttocks up high. Tuck your shoulders underneath you. Come up onto your toes so you have enough room to get the sacrum on your brick. And I have it on the horizontal support rather than the vertical. I leave that to you. And then what I've been working on myself a lot in this pose is rather than keeping my legs way out wide, I've really been trying to work to bring the legs together. Sometimes that can bother someone's lower back, so if that's the case for you, you don't have to bring them all the way in. But when I work on bringing my legs in closer together, I actually feel more lift coming into the chest. Right, then lift your right leg up for Ekapada Sativanda. Spread your toes. And then bring the leg down. And bring your other leg up. Spread your toes. Observe the effect on your quadricep and your groin. Then come back to the center. Lift your buttocks up and come all the way down. All right, then if you have a bolster, great. If you don't, also great, but set up for Viparita Karani, legs up the wall, please. I also still have my blanket here, which will be nice for my head. And I'm gonna somersault into Viparita Karani, but you can also just lay on your bolster. And so then you're gonna come into Viparita Karani. I like the support because I feel that depth in the groin, because I just feel my abdomen drawing in and also spreading. It's a very calming pose, soothing for the mind, the breath, the body, the soul, the spirit. Let your eyes release into the back of your head. Let your tongue release away from the roof of your mouth. Unclench your jaw. Let the back of the throat release. Let the sides of the throat release. Let the base of the throat release. Let your ears draw inward. Completely relax the features of your face. Become quiet within. Vicky, a little bit it looks like your legs are listing to the right. All right, keep that sense of inner, that's a really good idea actually. Go ahead and let your legs go out wide like they're doing Upavishta Konasana for just a couple minutes, not a couple minutes, just a few cycles of breath. And feel that nice effect and broadening across the pelvic region. And then keep that and draw your legs back together. And observe how now you feel additional depth in the groin. All right, and then bend your knees, push yourself off your support, and set up for the Shavasana of your choice. You can have a little support under your head. You can have bolsters underneath your legs. You're welcome to do the prone Shavasana also. Chest support with additional head support is also a great choice. Just set up and let your eyes release into the back of your head. Let your tongue release away from the roof of your mouth. Unclench your jaw. Let the base of the throat release. Let the sides of the throat release. Pratima, what you're doing is fine, but if you can find a way to get your head also supported a little bit higher, yeah, so that would be good. So your head should be a little bit higher than the rest of your body. There you go, yeah. So like, you know, if you wanted that support underneath your chest to be fine, but then you would need even more support for your head. That looks a lot better, good. Let your eyes release into the back of your head. Let your tongue release away from the roof of your mouth. Unclench your jaw. Let the back of the throat release. Let the sides of the throat release. Let the base of the throat release. Let your ears draw inward. Become quiet within. Observe how your practice itself is a support for you. Now from that quiet space within, inhale. Consciously use your inhalations to bring this awareness of your true self with you as you go about your work in the world. If you're on your back, place your hands on your rib cage and bend your knees. If you're on your stomach, just roll to one side and pull your knees up toward your chest. And then roll toward one side. Direct some of your breaths into your back body before you sit up. And then come all the way up to sitting. Close your eyes and fold your palms together at your heart. In gratitude to the benefit you receive from your practice of yoga, in gratitude to the people of the opportunity to learn and study and practice yoga with, and in gratitude to the lineage of Hatha Yoga itself, as practiced by BKS Iyengar, reaching back to the sages of India, and down through a line of teachers and students to you, here on the mat in Austin, Texas. Val. I said that yesterday, Val, and I opened my eyes, and Carly had gotten baby Caroline, and so baby Caroline was sitting right in her lap when I opened my eyes and talked about that, and it was amazing. So it was really cool. All right, so I hope Soren is doing well also. So hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's great to see everyone.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Anne.
Good to see you, Jonathan. Hi, Uma. Good to see you. I think I've seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I've not been attending.
Okay, I'm glad you're back. It's good
Yeah.
to see you. Hi, Shanti. Same thing. I don't think I've seen you for a while. So.
Hi, Anne. I'm good. How are you?
I'm
Glad
good.
to see you too.
What's an option, Caroline? An option for? Do you mean headstand or handstand?
Head.
Head.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So headstand, you could always do downward facing dog, or the standing forward bend, or that wide leg apart forward bend that we were doing. So any of the three poses that we typically do before headstand are good options instead of headstand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure.
What was the name of the website that you were watching the video? The yoga?
The name of the website is called Eastern Yoga, and she has a blog. And my sister and I have actually been, she goes to Pune pretty regularly. She actually lives in England, and she's a really good note taker. So we've been doing some of the sequences that come out of Pune pretty regularly. But she also did notes of the 7 days of the Abhijata intensive. So, and she's really good at taking notes.
I'll put it in the chat if you want, Anne.
Yeah, that'd be great. And so you can then do that again. So that'd be great. Val's putting it in the chat.
Thank you.
So,
Sounds
do you have to be Iyengar teacher to do those
teacher
classes? Or?
Well, you had to be a member in order to join to get access to the live classes. You had to be a member of INOS. that you could just join in addition to pay. But you know, she's actually doing another one through the Mexican Association coming up sometime soon, and so you could see about signing up for that one. Also.
So can you send an email, like, because I would like to do it, because just
Yeah. So Val has the Yoga blog link if you want it.
And Pratima, if you want to join Ineus, it's IYNAUS. It's Iyengar Yoga Association of the United States, or National Association, IYNAUS. And you can go there and sign up as a member. Then you get all the emails and you'll get notified of when different teachers might be doing different things. I think it's like, I don't know, $60 a year or something.
Something like that.
I think it will be cool to do things like from Indian teachers as well.
Well, a lot of the Indian teachers are actually holding classes like in their homes. Like there's a woman, Gulnaz, and you don't have to be a member. That's actually through Randy Just Studio up in Dallas. And you don't have to be a member to sign up for some of those. There's also a woman, Devti Desai. I haven't taken any of them, but I know she's a great teacher, and she's also, so a lot of the senior Indian teachers are actually Zooming also.
That would be cool.
Can you send their name on this thing? Like, I want to learn Iyengar.
I'll get that together for my next weekly email. Okay. So I think you're on my list.
That'd be great. Okay.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
And this is Jonathan. I just wanted to thank, well, certainly you, Anne, and I wanted to thank everyone for just showing up, being here, and continuing to support us during this time. I can't always make it to the classes live, so I'm glad I can make it to this one. And we just love you all, and we're so grateful to all of you. And thank you so much, Anne, for everything you're doing for us.
You're welcome. It's a delight to be part of this community. All right, everyone, I'm going to sign off now. Take care and see you next week. Good to see you, Kristen. Bye. Bye, Marissa.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Melinda. Nice to see you too. Okay, I'm ending the meeting. Here we go. Bye.